Hello, everyone. Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and I am here with you today to talk about aged garlic. Now, most of us are familiar with garlic when it comes to the foods that perhaps you are eating that are enhanced with maybe a garlic flavor. Remember, we'd rather use real garlic as opposed to an artificial. So, this is first and foremost. But we also probably know at this point in time that aged garlic can be very, very beneficial when it comes to cardiovascular health, which is certainly the case. And we can see this just from the enormous amount of clinical research that is out there that hones in specifically on the cardiovascular properties that the aged garlic can actually yield us. Now, let's just take a look at what aged garlic actually is. When we look at the garlic family, this is actually a offshoot of an onion. And we know that the garlic itself has an enormous amount of different nutrients that are contained within it. So we're looking at a full spectrum of things like vitamins and minerals, but also these really powerful active constituents, including allicin. So we know that the allicin is the predominant thing in which most of the clinical research has looked at in terms of having all of these medicinal properties to it and all of these potential health benefits. So we know we're getting vitamins and minerals, we're getting antioxidants, and we get this really powerful allicin that is coming from the aged garlic. Now, the reason why we would want to take aged garlic in terms of a supplement as opposed to just having, say, fresh garlic that we chop up and put into our food is that we're going to get a lot more of that active constituent allicin when we're taking it in an extracted form. So we're getting a really power punch of that allicin. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because when we think about a Mediterranean diet, and anyone that's listened to me, they know that I am incredibly a kind of fanatical when it comes to the Mediterranean diet. And there's a reason why, because we look at the full spectrum of all of the different nutrients that are contained when you actually adhere to a Mediterranean style diet. So when we think about things such as the healthy fats, the omega-3 fatty acids, when we think about all the vitamins and minerals and the high fiber foods coming from the fruits and vegetables and the seeds and the nuts. But we also have to look at things such as onions and things such as garlic. And we know that these can really provide us with an awful lot of health support. So when we think about the cardiovascular system, there are numerous studies out there showing the power of aged garlic. In the Journal of Nutrition back in 2016, they actually went through and they did a full spectrum randomized trial giving people aged garlic. So you had a placebo group and then you had the group that was given aged garlic. And what they found in that actual trial was that the group given the aged garlic had a reduction in blood pressure, both the systolic and diastolic, so that's your top number and the bottom number. They also had a reduction in total cholesterol, so they had an improvement in their bad cholesterol as well as in their triglycerides. So that's a really positive thing, right? But they also found some interesting things. They found that there was a reduction in calcification within the arteries. So, hey, nobody wants to have calcium buildup in their arteries. So they found the group that was given aged garlic had this reduction, which is really very impressive because when we think about things that can try to impede or stop something from progressing in a negative way, well that's a positive. But when we find something that can actually reverse something that is bad, then that's even better. And this is what they are able to detect with the aged garlic. So I think that that in and of itself is pretty darn cool. But they also found different markers for inflammation that came down exponentially in the group given aged garlic. So we're looking at things like homocysteine, we're looking at fibrinogen, we're looking at C reactive protein, we're looking at TNF alpha, which is tumor necrosis factor alpha. All of these markers that indicate that we've got things going on that aren't too hot. When we think about something like homocysteine, for example, we know that that's looking at vascular inflammation. Well, we definitely don't want our vessels to be inflamed. We don't want anything to be inflamed in a chronic state. But then when we look at something like fibrinogen, this is looking at kind of the stickiness of the blood. If we have elevated fibrinogen, that actually puts us in a greater risk category when it comes to having a stroke or a heart attack. So that's not a good thing. And I always encourage people to make sure that you have these types of blood tests done. You have your fibrinogen level tested. You have your homocysteine level tested. Because if you do this and you see, oh gosh, I have high fibrinogen and I have high homocysteine, well, then maybe we need to make some lifestyle modifications. And part of that can be including aged garlic as part of your supplementation routine. So it's just a thought. But what I really kind of wanted to focus in on today was to talk about all of the other ways that aged garlic can be beneficial. So we know the wide scope when it comes to the cardiovascular health. So, like I mentioned, when we think about atherosclerosis and the building up of the plaques within the vessels and the calcifications, we know that aged garlic has been shown to be very targeted towards that. But I also want to talk about all of the other ways in which aged garlic can be incredibly supportive to your health. So when we think about the immune system, this is actually really quite cool. They've done some recent studies where they recognize that the power of that allicin, and it's because it has this sulfur component to it, that it works really nicely when it comes to creating kind of a homeostasis or a balance within the gut microbiomes. We're talking about that intestinal flora that we need to make sure remains healthy to keep us healthy. So if we have bad bacteria, we know that that bacteria can start to overrun our good bacteria. And when that happens, that can actually lower our immune system. We don't want that to happen, especially in this day and age. So they have found that the aged garlic actually works really lovely in the intestines to help to promote a healthy recolonization of those good healthy bacteria. So, hey, okay, so we know we have an immune system support. But let's talk specifically about the way that aged garlic has been shown in clinical research to target specific things. We're talking across the board. We're talking bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungus. Well, that's pretty comprehensive. So we know it's been studied to target things like candida overgrowth. And candida, this is naturally occurring, but if we have too much of it, too much is not always a good thing. It's kind of like bad bacteria. Too much, not a good thing. Same thing with your candida. So they know that the aged garlic can target that candida overgrowth. So when we think about that type of a fungus, what we want is things that can actually kind of penetrate and kind of poke a hole into that fungus so it disrupts it. And we know that that aged garlic is very targeted towards that. But we also know that aged garlic has been studied in the setting of things like influenza. We know it's been studied in the setting of E. coli. And most people have heard if you get an E. coli infection, it's not really a good thing. We know it's been studied in the setting of H. pylori. Now, why is that so important? Because we think about the damage that H. pylori can do to the lining of our stomach, which is the number one cause of peptic and duodenal ulcers in this country, which is also the number one driving cause for stomach cancers. So H. pylori is a nasty, nasty little bacteria, and it's incredibly common. And oftentimes people can be infected with this bacteria for a really long time before they actually seek out help because maybe you're starting to have extreme acid reflux or belching or bloating, problems like that. But we also know that H. pylori has also been linked to things like Parkinson's disease. So it's one of those areas, once again, where if you're having GI issues and you experience a lot of acid reflux, definitely go in and ask your doctor to run a H. pylori test because, at minimum, just rule it out. It's just common sense. We don't want something lingering around that can do significant damage, which we know has been linked to all of these horrible things. So that's one thing. But we look at the fungus, we look at the viruses, we look at the bacteria, we look at the parasites. We know that it's targeting all of these different things. They've studied it in the setting of chronic UTIs. So, for people who have experienced multiple urinary tract infections and perhaps the body has become resistant to standard treatment with antibiotic therapies, and it's you have what is known as antibiotic resistant UTIs, they have actually turned towards aged garlic as a potential option. So now that we can see all of the different ways in which aged garlic can be beneficial when it comes to our gut health, our immune health, our heart health, the entire cardiovascular system, brain health, we can even include that into it. It is a really nice thing to consider including into your daily routine. Now, how much should you be taking and when should you take it? Well, a lot of this kind of depends on what your specific health goals are, your health needs are. And I always advise people to go in and talk to one of our health experts at any of our locations. You can email us, you can call us, whatever is convenient for you, and ask specifically, like, this is why I want to use aged garlic. This is my health history. How much should I take? When should I take it? And this is really the best approach to really any supplement. So, and that's what our health experts are there to do. They're there to help guide you and help you help yourself. So I will be back with you in a few more days to talk about more wonderful formulations available at Invite Health. Thank you so much.